Throughout history, there have been numerous female criminals who gained notoriety for their actions. Here are 10 of the most notorious female criminals and a brief history behind each of them. 1. Aileen Wuornos, 1956 to 2002. Aileen Wuornos was a serial killer who murdered 7 men in Florida between 1989 and 1990. She claimed that the killings were in self-defense during attempted sexual assaults. Wuornos was convicted and executed by lethal injection in 2002. 2. Bonnie Parker, 1910 to 1934, and Clyde Barrow, 1909 to 1934. Bonnie and Clyde were a notorious criminal couple who robbed banks and killed numerous people during the Great Depression era. They were ultimately ambushed and killed by law enforcement in 1934. 3. Myra Hindley, 1942 to 2002, and Ian Brady, 1938 to 2017. Myra Hindley and Ian Brady, known as the Moors murderers, were a British couple who abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered 5 children between 1963 and 1965. They were sentenced to life in prison. 4. Griselda Blanco, 1943 to 2012. Griselda Blanco, also known as the Black Widow or the Queen of Cocaine, was a Colombian drug lord. She played a significant role in the Medellin cartel and was involved in drug trafficking and multiple murders. Blanco was assassinated in Colombia in 2012. 5. Elizabeth Pottery, 1560 to 1614. Elizabeth Pottery, the Blood Countess, was a Hungarian noblewoman who is said to have tortured and killed hundreds of young girls in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. She was eventually arrested, but due to her status, she was placed under house arrest until her death. 6. Marianne Cotton, 1832 to 1873. Marianne Cotton was an English serial killer who is believed to have poisoned up to 21 people, including her husbands, children, and stepchildren, for financial gain. She was convicted and hanged in 1873. 7. Belgeunis, 1859 to 1908. Belgeunis, a Norwegian-American serial killer, lured men to her farm through personal ads and killed them for their money and assets. She is thought to have murdered over 40 people before her farm burned down in 1908, and she disappeared. 8. Suana Baraza, born 1957. Suana Baraza, also known as the Old Lady Killer, was a Mexican professional wrestler who became a serial killer. From the late 1990s to 2006s, she murdered elderly women in Mexico City, posing as a social worker to gain access to their homes. She was sentenced to 759 years in prison. 9. Rosemary West, born 1953. Rosemary West and her husband, Fred West, were a British couple involved in a series of sexual assaults, rapes, and murders, including those of their own family members. Fred committed suicide before facing trial, and Rosemary was sentenced to life in prison. 10. Catherine Burney, born 1951, and David Burney, 1951 to 2005. Catherine and David Burney were an Australian couple responsible for a series of abductions, sexual assaults, and murders in the 1980s. They were apprehended, and David Burney died in prison in 2005, while Catherine remains incarcerated. These women gained notoriety due to the heinous nature of their crimes and their impact on the communities and lives of their victims. Their stories continue to be subjects of interest in true crime and criminal psychology discussions.